Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today, feedback video if you like. We'll go through some of the comments on the last video, see what was happening there in the comment section, and also have a bit of a chat about what's happening around the country at the moment. Not a lot, unfortunately. As we know, there's lots of restrictions in place, there's curfews in place, nobody can really travel anywhere. People in the Valencian community are being held hostage there by the government. Nobody can come in or out unless they are a resident there, and that's a fairly similar scenario around the country at the moment. 2020 is coming to an end. This is the last video that I'm going to do in 2020 here on the couch. Tomorrow I'll do a news video as normal, and then we'll see if I do a video on the 1st or the 2nd. I might take a few days off. Of course, normally I would be in Portugal at this time of the year. Those plans, of course, had to be thrown out the window, so staying put this year. And it's going to be a fairly low-key New Year's Eve for me this year. Nothing really planned. Maybe a nice dinner. Maybe I'll stay up for the 12 grapes at midnight. I don't know yet. I'll wait and see. Completely different to last year's celebration when I went home and we were able to have a nice outdoor party, enjoying that fantastic weather at this time of the year down there in places like Perth. But nothing like that here at the moment. Very, very cold in Madrid. The temperature struggles to get over the 10-degree mark. And the last few days have been cold, wet and windy, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back to Australia next year. There's talk about that 14-day quarantine being in place throughout 2021 down there in Australia, so it's going to be difficult for me to go back next year, I imagine. So it seems like holidays to places like Australia are going to be difficult for some time to come, unless they get rid of or shorten that quarantine period, because I can't see myself and the family spending 14 days in a hotel if we're only going to go back to Australia for 15 or 16 days. But anyway, just another one of the barriers that have been put up since this pandemic began. Now, there were lots of comments on yesterday's video. It took me quite a while to get through them this morning. A lot of people not too happy about my suggestion that people should be more open and honest on social media. People seemingly more content to sit behind an anonymous profile on social media. It was just a suggestion. I thought I would put it out there and see what the reaction was. And obviously, judging by some of the comments that I saw, people not too happy about having to reveal who they really are on social media. Now, there was also a fair bit of feedback because of something that the health minister here in Spain, Mr. Illa, had to say the other day. He was interviewed on Spanish television the other day and was answering a lot of questions that people have about the vaccination plan here in Spain. And one of the things he said, which was picked up by the international media straight away, was that Spain is going to set up a register of people who refuse to take the COVID-19 vaccination. Now, he also reiterated that the vaccine is not going to be compulsory here in Spain, that nobody's going to be forced to take it, but when it's your turn to get vaccinated and the local medical centre calls you up but you refuse to get the vaccination, that's when your name is going to be put on some type of register, and that information is going to be shared with the European Union. So I imagine that this is a Europe-wide thing, not only here in Spain, but other European countries are going to be doing something similar. I haven't been able to find out whether this is the case or not, but I'm sure that people living in other European Union countries will let us know if there is some type of similar register or going to be some type of similar register in other European Union countries. He also said that this information is not going to be made public. It's going to adhere to the data protection laws that we have in place in the European Union. And he also said that getting immunised against COVID-19 was an act of solidarity towards our loved ones and citizenship. So according to the minister, the vaccine is not going to be compulsory. Nobody's going to be forced to take it, but people that refuse to take it, the anti-vaxxers, are going to see their names put on a register that will be shared with the European Union. Now, a piece of news that did catch my attention was the fast-tracking of Spanish citizenship for the pianist James Rhodes, the former British pianist who, as I said, is now Spanish, and he was granted Spanish citizenship after only 3 or 4 years living in the country. Now, normally it's 10, but as I said, for Mr. Rhodes, the process was fast-tracked. He posted a video yesterday on Twitter saying that it's always been his dream to be Spanish, and that dream was made a reality by the Spanish government. Apparently, the decision to grant Mr. Rhodes Spanish nationality was because of artistic merit and also because of his activism here in Spain against child abuse. But as usual here in Spain, quite a few people, especially those on the right side of politics, not very happy with the government doing this. They can't understand why some people get this treatment and other people don't. Mr. Rhodes, of course, over the last few years has been quite prominent on social media, especially Twitter, showing his love for the country. In fact, a couple of years ago, he wrote a letter expressing his love for the country and everything Spanish. And I think he also said something along the lines of, here in Spain, everything is done better. But I think this is just another example of it's not what you know, it's who you know, especially if you're a person with a fairly high profile and you manage to become friends with the people that are calling the shots here in Spain. Now, I'm not really sure how this is going to work for Mr. Rhodes. I don't know whether he has to renounce his British nationality in order to take on the Spanish one. I know, for example, that Spain doesn't allow dual citizenship with Australia, so I would have to renounce my Australian citizenship if I decided to become Spanish. It is something that I could do. I've been living in the country long enough. I think it's 10 years normally before you can apply for Spanish citizenship, so I could apply for it, but I'm going to be honest, I've never thought about applying for it. I've always been happy to live in this country as a resident. I've always been happy to maintain my Australian nationality. I've never felt the need to become Spanish. I don't have that love of the country that James Rhodes has. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like living here, but I'm never going to break down one of these videos and end the sentence saying Viva España, coño. But well done to Mr. Rhodes for achieving something that apparently he's always wanted. And it's good to see somebody who's only been here for 3 or 4 years so passionate about the country and so passionate to be Spanish. And of course, in yesterday's comment section, the wine debate continued. Lots of people telling us about their favorite Spanish wines, the best reds, the best whites, the best rosés, the best regions in Spain for wine, people having different opinions about that. Somebody mentioned the Bierzo, other people mentioned Galicia. They have very good white wines in that part of the world, also quite good red wines. Somebody the other day also mentioned wines from Extremadura. You don't really think of wines when you think about that part of Spain, especially good wines. There's also some good wines coming out of Alicante nowadays. Catalonia is a good wine producing area. And we also have the more traditional areas of Rioja and Ribera del Duero, which are where some of the more well-known red wines in Spain come from. There was also a fair bit of debate about how much you need to pay for a good quality wine here in Spain. Somebody the other day said around €2 or €3 you can get a good bottle. Other people saying that you need to spend more than 10. I don't think I've ever found a good red wine for under €4. That's why I said yesterday I normally pay around 8, 9, 10 for a bottle of red. I've got 3 or 4 red wines around that price that I always go to. I always buy the same wines because I know that I can be guaranteed when I pull out that cork that I'm going to get a good tasting red wine for the price. It's not always the case. You can get some bad wines around that price point as well, but I generally find for that price you can get a fairly decent wine. It's a little bit different when it comes to white wines. I've had good white wines for under €2.50. In fact, I regularly buy a white wine for around €2.20, which is fairly good quality, and it comes from an area called Rueda, which is in the province of Valladolid. But that's just normally what I pay for wines here in Spain. You can find good wines at €2, as somebody said the other day, but you just have to look a bit harder for them. But they are out there, and sometimes you can find yourself a good quality, low price wine here in Spain. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.